Hey everybody, Joel, Moose Droppings by ImportSauce.com, and the engine is down. Next thing we're going to do is show you getting the tranny mated back up and seeing if we can drop this guy in. So stick around. We're going to show you a lot of the same stuff we did on the M66 swap, which is just going to be flywheel, pressure plate, clutch, mate all of that up, and then hook it up here on our hoist and see if we can get it into that guy. Stick around. First thing we got to do is get the flywheel on. Single mass flywheel. Whole big description about that in the M66 swap. But essentially we have 12 bolts. Here they are. 12-point T5s. These are all brand new. They're single use because they are going into have to be sealed with a thread sealer. The torque spec is going to be 33 Newton meters on first pass, and then 60 or 65 degrees. We'll overlay that right here, whatever the correct spec is, but I think that's pretty close. So what we're going to do is go around, put all of these on here, hand tight. Be aware that there is an orientation. You have this little guy here, which should line up with that other guide guy right there. So we'll put those on and show you what that looks like. Same thing for torque. If you don't have somebody to hold it, you can put a 30 millimeter on the crank, and you can that's just sitting there for now, but we're going to secure that and straighten that and get that on there, and let you know. All of these are in like hand tight. So now we're going to go every other all the way around, and the first torque spec is actually 45 Newton meters, so whatever that works out to be, I think it's like 35 or so. So we'll go ahead and hit that, and then we'll move on to the second phase, which will be 65 degrees. So we'll go grab our little angle meter and get these all suited up. Next up is going to be the clutch with a clutch installation tool. So you get one of these with every new clutch that you buy. We had to track one down because we didn't think we would pull the clutch off without having a new clutch to replace it with, but because this has almost 0 miles on it from the M66 swap, we'd toss that. So it's always good to keep one of those around. Pay attention, flywheel side. Make sure that you put that correctly where it needs to go. So we're going to stick that on, and then we will come and put this guy on, following the guide pins that are on there. There are a total of 3 of them on the flywheel, and we will look at the look for the witness marks as well of where the bolts were on here previously. 18 foot-pounds of torque, and they have little lock washers, and these are brand new as well. Total of 6 of them. And we'll tell you the spec. It looks like a T something on there. That is all in. Those were T40s, which is weird because I was looking back at the M66 swap write-up, and those were 6 millimeter Allen keys. So I mean, same thread pitch, same everything. It's just we happen to get a different head on the new ones that we got this time. So at this point, 18 foot-pounds, everything's there. Boop. Clutch is in place. I guess next, let's mate this guy up. All right, I'm gonna look back at the earlier in the write-up or on the M66 write-up to figure out exactly which bolts go where, and if I'm having trouble getting this thing, I may just kind of use some assistance and pull it up and get it leveled on there. But we're gonna pull out the bolts and we will start putting those in, and we'll show you what that looks like. Okay, tranny is all mated up. If for some reason you find, hey, this is kind of pinching or binding, those splines are pretty small, so just give a rotation on the crankshaft, just a smidge, or have somebody kind of tickle it over on that side, and that may be what's going on. A couple of guide pins that need to line up. We just put a little block under that to, kind of pop it up and make it straight. Here's a picture of the bolts. We found it on the M66, or actually higher up in this thread, where we just lay them out. It's an assortment of 13 and 14 millimeter heads, and we just go around and punch them all in. So the next thing we're going to do is right over here is put our brand new starter on. 2 bolts that will go through into through there and grab, and then a little guide hole as well. If you're finding that that is not going in or lining up, same thing. Big splines, make sure you just kind of spin the crank a little bit with your 30 millimeter, and it should sink right in. Okay, so couldn't really use a socket get in there. You need a deep socket. So actually what we did is we just got open-ended, or a 14 ratcheting wrench for these, and the torque spec, I don't know it, so it's being overlaid on the screen right now. What's next? Oh, vehicle speed sensor 2. I can't tell, but hopefully it's a torque. Hopefully it's the same as the pressure plate, so I don't have to run upstairs, but that's going to go and sit right here, and one there, and one in there. So let's go ahead and put that in. Okay, we got lucky on that. They were the same, T40, so same spec as the pressure plate or so. Okay, I think that may be it. Is it time to drop this in? I don't know. Let's see. We don't have much left in the trunk. Those are all this. Transmission mount, and engine motor mount. So, and then we have engine motor mount, tranny mount, and the side guy that goes onto the tranny, which we do have to put on after the tranny is kind of in place. We couldn't get the tranny out with that thing. It was blocked by the frame rail. So I'm thinking we're gonna hook this guy up. Drop it in. All right, so we have our nuts ready for the tranny mount. We already have the tranny engine mount on this side on the engine. Probably just pull some of this stuff out of the way that's just sitting there for now, and then see if we can get this done before we lose our daylight. It's already getting a little dark here. Okay, so one thing I did before we put this in, and it's stuffed way back there on the firewall, is went ahead and reran all the vacuum lines that are going to go off of the turbo, and placed them all onto the turbo, so that way when our engine is in, all we have to do is reroute the solenoid, which is going to be right there on the firewall, not buried down underneath. So those are all in, and then we'll just refer to that chart when we're hooking them back up. Last thing I'm going to do is I pulled the soft lines out for the external oil cooler that we have in there, because same thing, it's going to be easier to come up here and connect them inside the grill. So we're going to connect those down on there, and then what we have to do is get this tire out of the way, right? When we drop the tranny in, we're going to have to meet up with the mount that is going to be right about here, which there it is sitting right there. That goes on when the tranny is kind of hovering inside the wheel well, and then once that's on, then we can mount it up with this. We may just have this set aside, and then once the tranny gets down and clears in, then we'll set that, get the other motor mount, and then also that motor mount there is just a bracket, right? Because that guy is already on, ready to go. So we're gonna connect those lines onto this side, pull the tire off, and see if we can get this thing in before the sun goes down. There we are. Lines are now on there. Tires off. Put this at the lowest point we can, just to try to get this side a little bit lower. We've pulled pretty much everything out of the way and kind of moved it aside. Last thing we're going to do is pick up that fuel rail and kind of set it up here. And then we'll get this guy up. Looks like about another 2 feet or so, and then drop it in kind of angled down. We have our little engine level tech, so we'll be able to spin that and kind of adjust the angle to get it in. And we have all of our hardware here ready to go for our transmission, trans mount, and we'll get our sockets suited up so that when we put those in we can do that. So essentially we're just going to go up and back down. It was a long night. This is very difficult with one person. Would have been probably 10 times faster with 2 people to help guide and, you know, make sure we're not caught up on stuff. Cherry picker's done. That's packed up. Going back to its home. And so the first thing we're going to do is go around and double check our transmission mounts here. Make sure the motor mounts are all dialed in. Then we're going to get underneath and do the E-bracket, as we call it. We can't really see it. You kind of see it in there. It's that guy down there that mounts up. So that's gonna be the first thing. Let's make sure everything is actually nice and secure, and then we'll go around and come up with a plan of attack to just start hooking, you know, the million things back up that need to be hooked up. Okay, so the mount is all buckled back up. Next, we're just gonna go ahead and connect these 2 transmission shift linkages simply by inserting these onto the knobs and using the lock pins. These are all clipped in. I think the next thing we want to attack is the fuel rail, but now I'm thinking hopefully it can get squeezed in with this on, and I'm afraid that it won't. We're gonna pop this hose and move it out of the way, and if not, then we're gonna have to pull the 6 bolts and pull the dang manifold off. Okay, we did not get lucky. We're gonna take the air and mani off, but no big deal. 6 bolts. Fuel rail is on, fully seated, all the O-rings seated, everything sat properly, so that's good. We have one 8mm that holds this on. We're gonna clamp that down, and then another one that holds that to the head, just to keep everything in place. So we'll put those on and put this guy back on, and then pick back up. Next up, still trying to get all the major bigs bolts going. We're gonna hit 2 important things. First, angle gear and bracket. So the angle gear is gonna bolt up to the tranny. Gotta get those splines. Hopefully they seat. If not, we will get our 30 and spin that, which will spin the tranny, and I can kind of see that angle gear just kind of sitting there, and then we can see the tranny shaft spline that has to go into there, and then you can see the bolt holes there. So we are going to do that, and then once that is secured, we'll get this little bracket here that holds it onto the block. And then once that's on, we'll do lastly the bracket here that holds the tranny. Yeah, we can't really see it from this angle. Yeah, you see, a little yellow. There we go, onto that guy down there. And that will be kind of the last of getting all the big stuff secured in. The engine will be fully secured. Once that last transmission bracket is in, the angle gear will be ready to send the power to the rear wheels. I hate taking stuff off, but right, so here's our sleeve, goes into our splines there. I may have to pull this hose off here just to kind of get us some clearance to push this up. We'll see, but I'll kind of pry bar it up and try to get the sleeve seated. Good thing is there's there's really no play on that. There's not going to be play on that, so we still may fight splines, but we'll see. Okay, 5 main bolts that hold the angle gear are in. I wanted to show you the top 2, which we had to get from the top. Let's see. 1 straight down, 2 right behind it. 13, it's easier just to come up top, squeeze your hand through there with a ratcheting wrench. Bottom 3 weren't too bad. We got lucky. Splines on everything. Just made it up. 1, 2, 3. Next, look at this bracket, which is going to be those 4 bolts. And that I'll squeeze under and show you, but that's going to meet up with the block. So I'll show you that. Sorry for the close-up. There's not much room down here. So there's the bracket, 2 10mm bolts, which hold it to the angle gear, 2 13mm bolts, which lock it into the block. So now the angle gear has 5 bolts holding it to the transmission and 4 bolts that are holding it to the block. Next thing we're gonna do is put in what I call the transmission. I call it the E bracket. 1, 2, and there's a third guy there. And then the 1 bolt that takes it through here. So we'll go ahead and suit that up. Okay, there we go. 3 13 mils bracket to the had a look bracket to the tranny. 1 15 mil torque mount to the bracket. Keep in mind that there is 1 13 mil. It's going to be the one way back up here. That's the one that has the extra nut where you are going to attach a wire harness guy on there. So we'll see that come into play later. Next up is the heat shield for the angle gear. We have 3 little stubby 10 mils. 1 here on this side, and then a 1, 2 on that side. That goes on top, and seeing the final is not really going to be visible, but we're going to go ahead and put that on. Yeah, the heat shield was a B. Can't even really show you pictures because you got to snake it up on top of the angle gear, and 1 bolt goes over into the tranny, the other 2 are on the angle gear, and you just got to kind of jam it in and line it up. Next up, last 2 things we have to bolt up to the block: AC compressor and power steering. Combination of 10 mils and 14 mil. So 2 on the AC compressor go up and through, which are going to go into that bracket right there. And then there's 1 shorter one. I don't remember where that goes, but I'll show you after I figure it out. And then the power steering line to the block. That's actually, see that bracket kind of just sitting there. And those will go in. So let's go ahead and get that, and I'll show you what it looks like. AC compressor in, total of 3 bolts, 2, 1, 2. And the third right there is the longer of the 2. You get an angle, you see that kind of go up into that. And then over here, goes up into, see that bolt goes up into the block. So next we have the 2 14 mils, the 2 10 mils that hold the power steering bracket, right? So we have 2 that go there, push that up, put them in, and the other 2 are right here on the front. Where's my finger? 1 and 2 are the little 10s. Okay, so those 2, not too bad. The first one there, not too bad, but that one over in the back, extremely difficult to get, whether it's from the top, the bottom, the side, because they're kind of recessed inside of that bracket. Oops. They're kind of recessed in that bracket, so, and then you have all of these lines here in front of it, like that hard line right there is right in front of that, so just, you know, 1/2 quarter of an 1/8 of a turn at a time. Next up, let's put our accessory belts. Alternator to power steering pump and power steering pump, crank to power steering pump, and this one in my hand, power steering pump up to the alternator, which is way, you can't really see it, way up there. Let's make sure that we put the alternator one on first, because it goes on the back set of the pulley, and once you get the front one on, you won't be able to get that one through. So we see our two manual tensioners. Those are both T50s, to open those up to be able to get the belt into the proper routing. So we'll go ahead and get that going here. Next up, let's go ahead and get these axles in. All brand new boots on there. Axle bolts are single use, so we have two brand new ones here. And we're gonna have to drop the suspension a little bit. It's still loose. We didn't torque everything back down, so we should be able to just hammer the shock out, make some noise, wake up the birds. Start over here with the passenger side, and then we'll move over to, the driver's side, and we'll move over to the passenger side. Get those in. Torque spec 36 Newton meters on that bolt, and then from there 90-degree turn. 90 degrees is easy. You don't necessarily need a little gauge for that. We'll just make sure that we're starting, you know, with the torque bar, or the ratchet, straight up and down, and then we'll make sure that we end at about 3 o'clock. That is all in. Axle seated. Just gave it a little tap to get it past the snap ring. Got that in. Did our torque. Tighten back up our guy here. Put this guy back on. That guy back on. Plugged in our sensor, and the side's ready to roll. We'll be back down in here using that fill plug once we get the other axle in. So pretty much we're going to do the same thing over on the passenger side. Only difference there is this one's going into the angle gear. We're going to pull those two bolts off of the carrier bearing bracket. Drop all of the suspension, and do the same thing. Passenger axle is all in, torqued. Everything is looking good. Now that the transmission is sealed, we could do the fill on the fluid, but we're gonna wait. The car needs to be level to do so, and we don't want to take it down just to take it back up. We're still got to button up some hoses underneath and kind of double check everything. So we'll kind of save the fluids to last. There's not much left. Well, I mean, there's a ton left, but it breaks down to vacuum hoses, coolant lines, air intake and charge pipes, wire harness. Those are kind of the four main sections that I think we have going. So we'll pick one, and you'll see us do it in a few seconds. Okay, new day. Got a little bit of sun peeking in. Got a couple hours of sun, couple hours of light. Let's go ahead and attack this wiring harness as one of the last few items we got. All this stuff, front of the engine. We got some knock sensors. We got some things that plug into the power steering. PCV, some grounds, some powers, oil or coolant temp, and it looks like this little bundle is probably fuel rail, I'm guessing. O2 sensor. We got this whole cluster, which is going on top of the head, because we see our cam position sensors there, and then coil packs, and then all the way up, I think that's probably going to be the turbo control valve, solenoid, main computer, fuse box plug, and then our couple grounds. Doesn't look too bad. And then over here, kind of our standalone, which is going to be some grounds and some powers. Those are pretty large, so I'm guessing ground blocks, and then maybe alternator as well. So we'll just start plugging this in, making sure that all of our clips get buttoned up, everything's seated properly, and just put this little section, oh, look what it is, little section behind us. The wiring harness, it was about 2 hours to get everything in there, and you know, all of this stuff, getting down to the boost, the sensor over on the intercooler. We're leaving the coil packs unplugged because on first startup we are gonna let the engine crank, let the oil pump move, build up some pressure, and just kind of make sure that that is working before we fire. Anything that we could not find a spot for or is not currently plugged in, we went ahead and just wrapped it in blue tape, 1, 2, 3, maybe a fourth down there, fifth over there, just so that we know it jumps out and assures that we're not going to miss anything. One thing we realized is with the glow shift oil pressure sensor that we see there, we have a full video on that. The line that they gave us is not quite long enough, so we're going to have to open this up, splice it in, solder, seal it, run it all the way down. So that's related, but not for, and everybody's going to have to do that, but got all our grounds to there, to the chassis, all of our power distribution is here, from the battery to the fuse box, down to the starter. Alternator, you know, pretty much everything. So that is good, and as we start putting other stuff on vacuum lines, I'm sure that these will get plugged into some sensors there. The one we didn't plug in was the O2 sensor that goes all the way back down to the cat, so we're just gonna have to climb underneath. It's already fished down there, but a couple hours wasn't too bad, and you know, that's almost counted as complete for this. As I said, as we plug other stuff in, those other ones will find their homes. So doing well. Next up is going to be, next up is going to be turbo to intercooler. So the all brand new Elevate spec. We did do a video on this. It's branded as front wheel drive, but with an assortment of spacers, you can actually push it down off the oil pan so that it will fit all wheel drive. So if you got all wheel drive and you're interested in the Elevate hard pipe for turbo to intercooler, check that out. But yeah, so we had blue hoses. We're cleaning everything up, so brand new black hoses, but essentially it's gonna come down off the turbo, cross under, mount up to the oil pan there via the hardware in my hand, and then come into the intercooler here on this side. And we'll go ahead and knock that out. That's gonna be some hose fittings and just some hardware to brace it to the oil pan. Okay, turbo to intercooler is all suited up, and next is going to be the intercooler up to the throttle body. Remember, this one's a little tougher to squeeze the hose on because it's the oversized, but we'll go ahead and just fish it in and try to seat the top first and then the bottom, and then just tighten those clamps down. Okay, that's all in. It wasn't too bad, but it was about 30 minutes wrestling with the top and the bottom. Next up, coolant. So we have a hose here. This is our into the double hose, goes into the heater core. Two of those come off of there. One of them right there, you can see. Connect that back to the hard line, and then the other one goes right there to the block. There from the hard line, it will swoop up to the thermostat there, and then into top of the radiator somewhere over in there. Can't see it right now. And that's this one. And You can see we have the glow shift tap in there for our real-time monitoring. New radiator hose, which will kind of follow the intercooler to throttle body hose down there from, there it is, that little silver guy is going to come up and connect right there to the other side of the thermostat. And then we have the two lines. One goes to the block, one from the radiator, and these go all the way right there to our brand new expansion tank, and then the expansion tank back to the hard pipe on the back. So let's get at it. We got all brand new clamps, black, just to match everything. So we'll just start in the back and work our way forward. Okay, next up, vacuum lines. We got three major components. The two hard lines that all just kind of clip or clamp on. That's going to be easy. Turbo control valve that has three of the smaller vacuum lines. So we're going to plug these in. And there's one wire harness connector which goes onto this guy. So we'll show you how those go. And as you can see, we're fighting the weather here. It's like working in a cloud. I want to show you the vacuum line routing. One's pretty easy. The other one I was kind of floating around and then looking, where does this go? Couldn't figure it out. Right, so you got your main brake booster one. This one's kind of easy. It comes off of the inlet manny. It has a check valve and it goes up, and that goes into the back of the intake pipe. The other side loops around and then goes all the way up. This one goes all the way to the brake booster. Hooks here, but that hose actually wraps around and goes into that. Last one obviously just hooks right in here. That one's easy enough because when you lay it out, you can see exactly where it goes. The other one, I was kind of like looking and I'm like, well, I know there's a plug and I know there's a this. There's a unit here and then that little rubber slip. So the unit slips onto there, and then there's a little hose that comes off. And I was like, where's this thing go? Actually, right behind your fuel line here, you'll see there's a little guy that comes up. That's the evap for the gas tank. So that one goes into there, and then the long portion of it comes off of a splitter. Trying to find it. Yeah, so right here underneath. Oh, there we go. Comes off, comes up. One splits, and this is just a hose clamp. You can see here that one goes into the intake pipe. So there's two that go on the back of the intake pipe, and then the long portion goes up, down, all the way across, up through a check valve and into the bottom of the intake manifold there. So that's the routing there. Next thing we're going to do, or last on the vacuum, is going to be turbo control valve. And you remember from earlier in the videos, we had already put all of our vacuum lines onto the turbo, so we didn't have to reach down there. We're just going to find our appropriate lines here. We have all new fittings for those, and we will hook it up based on the instructions. So you'll see that here in a second. What we see is what we got left. Intake system. Putting the whole stock one back on. California smog check. Borrowed this from a buddy. Still trying to source my own. Next time I go to the junkyard, just keep this on hand. Fill the tranny. MT90. A little over 2 quarts. Brake fluid, because we're going to have to fill the brake, bleed the clutch, and then our 7 quarts of oil with our Lucas break-in high zinc 7 quarts, because of the Elevate external oil cooler. We have a little bit more there. We have another jug of this up there, and then 2 gallons of distilled water, since this is concentrate, 50-50 mix. Some new lug nuts while we're at it. I don't know. I guess we'll go ahead and start with this. Rubber pipe goes down to the turbo, and then from there, stock turbo pipe hooks in, and then from there, our little rubber flex hose, which will go into the mass airflow. And then the mass airflow will go into the air box up there. And got a K&N reusable in there, so we'll just kind of dust this off. But this will essentially only be on for the smog check, and then we'll swap out later. Stock intake setup is on, from the turbo all the way up to the mass airflow sensor there to the air box. I forgot what a complete piece of garbage this air box is and how difficult it is to get it in and out. I ended up cutting the tab off the box that goes in there because this thing's coming back off right after smog. But trying to squeeze this thing in, we had a little casualty on the paint. We'll be able to clean that up. But yeah, this thing is just garbage. But as soon as we put our covers on here, essentially the engine's going to look stock and maybe just look like it has a painted engine bay. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next point. Battery's been sitting about a year. I went ahead and dropped it off at the parts store 2 weeks ago. They tested it, do a full charge. Said it's pretty much probably ready for a new one, but it's still holding the charge decently, and AAA doesn't come up to the forest, so I'll have to get it down the hill and then call AAA for a battery replacement down there. But it's holding charge. So notice the bumper's off now. Unrelated, but kind of related, we had to run those final oil lines for the external oil cooler before we can do fluids. But we are ready. This brand new reservoir is looking like it is thirsty, right? Everything's sealed up. We're gonna do coolant. That should gravity feed a lot of it in, since that is the highest point. Then we're gonna do 5.5 quarts of oil per elevates instructions. And then when we do our initial startup with the coil packs unplugged, oil pump should start circulating that through here, and then we can go ahead and put the rest of it in. I'll pull those instructions, but I think Elevate said let it run for a few seconds, but we're just gonna kick the starter to get the oil pump moving. So in terms of coolant, I'm gonna have to run upstairs and get some more, but I'll start with this one. We have the Volvo concentrate, and it has the mixing instructions based on what you want to do and temperatures and all that, but we're just going to go 50-50 on this. Got our distilled water, and the capacity is I'd have to check it. It's somewhere between like 8 and 10 quarts, right? So it's going to be maybe just under 2 gallons. So what I'm going to do is initially just dump this whole gallon in, and then dump as much of the distilled water in. I don't think it'll quite take 2 gallons, so we're going to be a little bit over 50-50, maybe 55, maybe close to 60, which is still okay, you know, because it gets dang cold up here. And then down the hill, it gets dang hot in the summer, so we'll do that. And then what we'll do after is we will take our brand new jug, if we have to get into it, and we will pour half of it into here, pour half a gallon, and then in the other half we'll pour the other half. So we will have a full setup of mixed. I will go ahead and throw a piece of tape over here and say 50-50 already mixed, you know, and then I'll have that laying around. So I'm gonna start with that. 1 whole gallon in. Whoopsie, forgot to close the radiator drain screw. We didn't lose that much, and we got more to go, so we're gonna be all right there. Okay, dropping our oil in, got a couple quarts in, and also already dropped the Zinc Plus. Got some kind of crappy oil, just came in the IPD. Not crappy, let's just say it's not what I would use normally, but came in the IPD oil change kit that we ordered up. And we're going to be flushing this in like 300 miles anyway, so this is just some oil to get it going. A little break in with the zinc, and then we'll switch over to some premium. So we're just putting the last few quarts in there, and then we'll move on. Looks like our guy has kind of bled down a little bit, so we'll top that off as well while we're here. Okay, got our oil in. We got 1 gallon of antifreeze and half a gallon, more than half a gallon of distilled, but we did lose a little, not too much. And then we'll wait when the water pump turns on. It's gonna mix everything for us, as well as bleed everything, burp it all down. Next thing we're gonna do is put the passenger side tire on so that we can lower this vehicle to standard height, and then we can get in and get our tranny filled up. So let's see, drain plug is down there. I got a brand new crush washer. I will go ahead and suit that up, and then fill plug is right there. We'll go ahead, and I think I already loosened that, so that's going to be nice. And typically what I do is I run some clear hose. I went down to the parts store and I took the fill plug, and I just said, hey, give me a hose just a smidge diameter smaller. So I'll feed that in, hook our funnel up, and then I fill it from the top. And we know that it is full when it is level and the transmission fluid starts coming out. So you're gonna fill it pretty much to the fill hole. And I just realized with the bumper off that I'll go upstairs and get a gallon of that juice. We had taken that off during, I don't know what we took that off for. We took it off for something, but so I'll fill that up too. So we'll bring you back. We are on the ground. One guy on. It's pretty dang level to me. And we have our little funnel and zip tied there so it keeps it straight, and it goes all the way down and comes down and goes right in there. We have our first bottle, MT90, ready to go. Brand new crush washer. That guy, we're gonna grab a towel, because once it starts oozing and then you pull the hose out, you know, get a little bit of drips, and we don't want that on this brand new setup. So we'll slowly, we know it's going to take about 2 and some change. So, you know, once we get to about 2, we'll be very slow. Just pour a little bit at a time, because you pour a little bit here and you got to wait for it to all the way down. Plus it's like 45 degrees and this stuff is super thick. So it's just going to drain through there like slower than molasses. Okay, so 2 and a tad on the fluid. Also filled up our guy, since I remembered. Wiper fluid. So what I did is now I just cranked this thing back up to get it off-centered and get this side of the car higher, so that it will minimize the dripping when I go ahead and pull that tube and do the quick Indiana Jones. Pull the tube and stick the plug in, because you know, you can barely get your hand in there. And then we had talked about on the M66, but we had swapped over. I think the original plugs are they're something ridiculous, like 20 or, you know, 24 millimeters, some huge thing. So we just went down to the parts store. We got 17 millimeter head, and it's way easier to get a 17 mil socket way back in there with little room than it is to squeeze a big old fat guy. I don't know if it's 24 or not. And then I went upstairs and I got just a big assortment of extensions, and we're definitely, the swivel is going to be our friend here. So I'm gonna do the Indiana Jones pull with the right hand and try to get the plug in with the left. I may jack this up a little bit higher, maybe as far as the jack will go, and then we'll just tighten that thing down until the crush washer crushes. Transmission is filled. Man, that drain. Fill plug is in the worst possible dang position. Even jacked up, even just like freaking ridiculous. So what I had done is I'd put extra fluid in anyways, but Everything's back together. Everything's on the ground. New lug nuts on. Everything's torqued. We're leaving the bumper, the wheel wells off, all that. Want to monitor what's going on here for a while. Next thing we got to do is the battery's been charged up. Again, coil packs are unplugged because we want to start it, let the starter bump the crank, which will shoot the oil pump to get it moving. The water pump is also on the serpentine belt, so it should bump that and start, moving some coolant through, but importantly the oil. See if this new oil gauge that we got works. We can kind of keep an eye on that as well, and we know it may take a little longer because now we have 7-quart capacity and we got to get oil pumped all the way through here and back as well. So we may do a couple extra bumps just to keep this thing moving. So next thing we got to do now is go ahead and flash the new tune that we have from Hilton, which is the forged internals tune add-on to our Stage 2 Plus. So we're gonna go ahead and get these keys out. Let's see, here we go. Haven't held these keys in, man, about a year. So let's go ahead and let's get ready to do that. I'm gonna go ahead and juice on. Okay, we got power coming up to the engine bay now. I'm gonna go to the back and flip that guy on. Oh, we got lights that came on. That's a good sign. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and flash this and get it all tuned up. We just did the tune. You can see the laptop up there. Flash is complete. Will it start?